We all want this sort of catharsis, this ability to be scared, to laugh, to cry, to do all those kind of things. And I think there is something intrinsically fun.
Well, it is a joy today to be speaking with Johnathan Brownlee and Ross Meyerson, the creative minds behind Torfoot Entertainment Group. Gentlemen, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank
Pleasure to be on,
you.
and thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Torfoot. How did it come to be?
Yeah, so I've had Torfoot Films as sort of my production entity for 10 plus years or so, and it's people always ask sort of where that name, the etymology of that name, and so part of my family lineage is from Scotland, south of Glasgow, and around the mid 15th century or so. My great grandfather had the wherewithal to marry into a wealthy family. He married the Duke of Hamilton's daughter, and they were bequeathed all of this farmland, not too dissimilar to this. Um, and it was called Torfoot Farms, and Torfoot means base of the hill or foundation. And so that's kind of how Torfoot came about. And then when Ross and I decided to join forces and create this larger entity, we liked that, and so we simply sort of rebranded as Torfoot Entertainment Group.
I love that.
And
And
I was born in Queens, and I just didn't have that story.
That's right. We looked at it being Brooklyn Entertainment Group, but it just didn't have the same kind of background story. So
that's fair. That's fair.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about what Torfoot wants to do? What type of stories are you most interested in telling?
Well, to quote JB,
Oh,
he likes to say that we're genre agnostic, and I think the important part about it is that what we like is just stories that ring true to us, and those stories um, can be in any genre. It's like if it's a script that we enjoy sitting down and reading like a good book, like then it doesn't matter to us what the genre is, because I had a college theater professor who once there was a show he directed and only four people showed up, and he said if there's more people on stage than in the audience, then we have to cancel the show. And I've kind of subscribed to that in filmmaking, that if nobody wants to like, even if it's to contradict myself a little bit, even if it's a script that we love and enjoy, if no one's going to watch it, then we're not going to make it, and you have to discern from that. But like you hear this all the time. It's about good scripts and good story telling, but we feel that taking that good script and executing it properly, and the Yeti, which I'm kind of jumping the gun here, is the first example of that.
yeah, I think part of what, we sort of split the word show business in half, and obviously there's the show part of it, the creative part of it, which is so important, but there's also the business aspects, as Ross alluded to, and we want to keep making films, we want to make money, and we want our investors to make money as well. So you've really got to find those projects that are both fun creatively for the audience, but also, it's a marketplace where we can sell and keep making films.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's talk about the Yeti. I don't think we're jumping the gun. Let's get into the Yeti here. What tell us about it? What I love that I in the notes I'm reading it says the creature is the star of the film. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I think that's
And
really
we're only saying that, by the way, so that when we're negotiating with the rest of our cast,
That's right.
it,
That's right.
it's
Look,
most
you're
favored
not the
nation with
star.
the Yeti. That's right. That's right. Yeah. The Yeti gets the biggest trailer. Let's put it that way. No, I mean, Ross and I, we'll both tell you that, we grew up watching these amazing Universal creature features and horror features. The Frankenstein and the Mummy and Invisible Man and Werewolf, and one of these mythical creatures that there's really no definitive film on it is the Yeti. And so we really wanted to not only make this film. It takes place in 1947, so it's post World War II, which is an interesting time. It's in the wilds of Alaska. So it's an interesting time, historically, but we wanted to tell a big epic, something that felt like a big epic, universal creature feature, and to do that independently. And so, we've brought in some of the greatest creature makers, guys that have worked on Ghostbusters and Jurassic World and Predator and Stranger Things, and great stunt teams. Freddie Poole, as the stunt coordinator for Tulsa King and the Bike Riders and others. And so we're really going to make this look and feel like a big epic film, on more of an indie sized budget. But really for us, it was, the ability to make kind of a definitive Yeti film.
It's interesting that you say that because that was actually one of the things that interested me about this is there really really isn't a Yeti film that people jump to like the immediately when you talk about that. There's all sorts of creature features, but not one for the Yeti, which is surprising in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I mean when we did our research, the first thing, and looking at any other films, and I haven't, I'm not knocking them, but in any monster film is the first thing that people write is I didn't believe the creature sucked, or
Mhm.
or this, and so that's where from day one we were like, well, we got to make sure that this Yeti is great, and that's when we dug deep, and and JB had worked with Ali Gordon and reached out to him, and when he said he was on, then we knew we could make it.
yeah,
I
and I
sorry,
was
go
just
ahead.
gonna I was just gonna add, we really wanted to do things in camera, very practically, as opposed to, obviously we'll use some visual effects in post to augment certain things, but we really, I like that idea of making stuff in camera. I think there's more craft to it. It gives your actors something to really work with. And so I think all of those things again harken back to that, those old Universal creature features.
You can tell. It's very simple. You can tell when it's all CGI. It's not that it's bad. It's just
Right.
you can tell there's a disconnect. And so for a film like this, for you both to be leaning into practical effects and bringing these incredible talents from so many different amazing films, I think that's really exciting. That's something I would want to see.
Well, I mean, all film is really, great characters and is based on great relationships and great interaction, right? So
Yeah.
that's why I think sometimes it can feel very cold if the actor is interacting, with a tennis ball as opposed to, interacting with an actual creature. And I think all of those practical things will really elevate the film.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know if I'm correct, looking at some of the films you've both worked on, you've dabbled with genre before, and even with horror and darker themes. And I was wondering, and thinking of this with the Yeti, you know, I know it's a creature feature delving into the horror realm. Is there something that you think that we can learn from dancing with our dark side, if you will?
Ooh, that's a great question. Yeah, no, I hadn't really made a horror picture until I made Puppet Master 4 years ago, and again, did that quite a lot of that practically. But I always, I've sort of leaned on this idea that we first of all, there's tons of subgenres, in horror, but I kind of harken it back to Greek theater and this idea that we all want this sort of catharsis, this ability to be scared, to laugh, to cry, to do all those kind of things, and I think there is something intrinsically fun about it. But one of the things I think it's interesting about the script that Gene and Will wrote is that there's a lot of relationship aspects to this. Won't give too much away, but it's really about the characters and their experiences together.
Hmm.
And I think that's what can elevate, just a horror film where a bunch of people get killed to something that's, a little is more interesting for the audience to watch.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, everything comes back to character.
Always does.
Again, you can and go. It sounds like I'm saying the opposite, but I'm not. When you can have the best visual effects in the world, but if you don't have characters you care about, it can
Yeah,
be
it's
empty.
exactly. And there's actually some interesting things that happen with the Yeti. The actual Yeti is a character, it's not just a creature. Um, and I think that's really, really important. We see some of the motivations of the Yeti. We see a little bit more depth in that character than we might just see in of something that's just a killing machine.
Hmm. So we're going to see that what I'm hearing.
I'm not going to give too much away, but that's a little bit of that.
So what I'm hearing is that we're going to see the Yeti sitting down and reading books and you know
Well,
philosophizing.
the Yeti's currently in the trailer and wanted to do this interview and we told him we couldn't. So yeah.
What's the next step for the film? My understanding is it's lensing soon, but I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, we go in front of the camera in mid to late January in Buffalo, New York. And you would think we'd be shooting practically because there'll be enough snow there, but we're not.
Say.
We're going to shoot on a set. And while we can't, we will be announcing cast pretty soon. When you said, that we've so thus far brought a lot of talented people, I can assure you that when the cast announcements are made, it'll follow suit. And, I've been lucky enough to have, some relationships in that world, in the casting world. And so, yeah, we're pretty excited about the people that we're going to be putting into this movie.
And we're lensing, we are going to have a theatrical release for this. We already know that. Can't announce who that's with yet, but it's going to get a theatrical release. So, we're shooting on large format with anamorphic lenses. And so it'll be really fun to watch this film in the theater in its run.
Oh, it sounds great. Are there other projects lined up that are coming down? Yeti sounds amazing, but are there other things that we can look forward to?
Yeah, for sure. I was going to let Ross, do you want to jump in there on that one, Ross, or?
Well, only I'm going to let you start because of your backdrop and your explanation that
Yes. So
we're not shooting the remake of Bonanza, but
I know. Although that would be fun. I haven't shot a Western yet. That'll be on the agenda at some point. I'm actually in Northern California right now shooting some behind the scenes stuff for one of the films that we're working on called My Name is Kira, which is an amazing story of Kira Wallstrom. This is actually her ranch. We've got a great true crime piece called The Eyes of Jefferson about John Matthews, who's a good friend of ours who caught a serial killer in the late 80s, early 90s in Dallas, Texas. Yeah, we've got a series about Will Rogers, which is a limited series. There's a great project called Juliet. I'll let Ross start talking about that one.
yeah, Juliet's a project that we've been developing with a writer by the name of Jen Richards, who is just came off the series Acolyte, and she wrote this wonderful script based on a short film that we found about a trans girl who transfers to a new school and auditions for the role of Juliet in her high school production of Romeo and Juliet. And strangely enough, we had been developing this project for a while. And by the way, that script just got chosen for the GLAAD list, which is a really prolific list in the LGBTQ world, as well as the Blacklist. And that announcement came out yesterday. But strangely enough, a very similar true to life story happened in Dallas, where a trans kid was removed from a role in his high school production of Oklahoma. And that happened after we were developing this film. And we feel it's a very important story to be told.
Oh, they sound amazing. I mean, that one alone sounds fantastic. So I'm looking forward to these. These sounds like great projects coming up as well.
Yeah, like I said,
we're excited.
We are very excited about our slate and telling these great stories.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, just as we're wrapping up here,
Yep.
I would love to know from your perspective, what films inspire you? I know we've talked a little bit about the stories that Torfoot wants to tell, but what are the ones that you both connect with?
Ross, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. My son makes fun of me because I call them slice of life stories. And my son says, well, Dad, everything's a slice of life. And I'm like, that's true. That is true. So maybe coming of age is a better story, but I love a good coming of age movie.
Yeah, it's funny. I just rewatched Anatomy of a Fall a couple of days ago, and it's films where the script, the dialogue, the character interaction is so strong and just so captivating. I mean, that's one of those films that's it's in multiple languages, is just so interesting to me. So, I look for films like that just sort of draw me in, based on the strength of the character and strength of dialogue.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for your time, both of you. Honestly, I'm looking forward to those projects.
Yeah, our pleasure.
I got my OG Yeti reference here for you.
Yeah, I saw that right away.
Yeah, well, for your audience, make sure to check out torfoot.com. You can see what's coming up, as well as, follow us on our handles at Torfoot Entertainment Group.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Have a great day,
Yeah,
gentlemen.
we appreciate
care.
you. Thank you.
Bye bye.